Gear up as Cash Miller and a team of accomplished guests steer you on an enlightening voyage filled with valuable tips, fresh insights, and effective strategies. Welcome to Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show.
Hello, everyone. This is Cash Miller of Titan Digital, and today I've got Jordan Guagliumi. Did I say that correct?
That's good enough. You're good.
Okay, of Constant Frequency, and we're going to be talking about programmatic advertising. Jordan, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself, let our audience know who you are and what you do.
Well, I'll tell you, I was like your guest last week. I was a former radio guy that got into digital. I worked for a company that was exploring the digital space, 15 years ago or something, and jumped into it and did what I could, and then decided to join a digital pure play company called Reach Local. I worked for them for about 4 or 5 years, got back into radio, and then everything changed with COVID. So I launched my own. Actually, the business has been around 19 years, but really decided to double down on digital, coming out of COVID, and have a variety of clients now I work with on everything from programmatic display, which we're talking about today, to OTT, listings management, pay-per-click, SEO. I kind of do it all, and I'm just loving it. I love being on my own and working with clients that I choose to work with, and whatever their needs might be. So I still help a couple of them with some radio and print and whatever else they need, but really have a strong passion now for digital marketing and what it can do.
Oh, great. That's an interesting switch to go from, radio over to programmatic and everything digital and stuff. Before we get into programmatic, how did you find that experience? Because it's quite a bit different from the advertising, in the advertising landscape.
It is. And, the thing about radio that was always a challenge, and anybody who's worked in the business knows that you're dealing with an intangible. The radio early on was always fighting with print, because print, you could hold up the newspaper and show people your ad. And even on TV, there was this sense that you could, show people a visual. And radio is always a challenge because the medium itself just, wasn't a visual medium. And the thing about digital that a lot of people in traditional media are bringing into the fold is the fact that now you have that visual component. You also have incredible amounts of tracking and the ability to kind of see what's working and have data. Traditional radio, you put a spot on the air, you kind of know how many people and what kinds of people are going to hear it. But after it runs, you don't really have anything to hang your hat on. And you kind of go to the client and say, depending on how good a rep you are, you either say, did it work? Or you go in presumptively saying, it worked. And it was always really tough because you didn't have reporting and any of that to show, who heard the ad.
Yeah, that's so true because, you've got, with radio, I mean, it is an intangible. It's like, how do you actually judge? So unless you're doing some sort of a deal, something that they can submit to some sort of company that allows for you to see, how many signups you have or something. It's a very hard thing to track. Whereas programmatic, it is all about tracking. And, for those that don't know, I mean, programmatic advertising, it's all over the place now. It's streaming audio, it's streaming video and such. When you go to watch a show on Hulu, you're going to get, streaming video ads and such. If you're watching or listening to something on Spotify, those are streaming audio ads and such, and then you've got image ads and such that are following you around and whatnot. They've got movement in them. They've got, different things going on. What have you seen, in your time, in selling programmatic and stuff? What have you seen kind of as an evolution? Because there was a time when this kind of stuff wasn't available to everybody. It really was a realm for big agencies and such. Now, a lot of us, we have more access to it. So what have you seen as an evolution?
I think you just hit it, Cash, and that's the fact that a lot of people are, as consumers, take ourselves out of being marketing people and agency people and digital people. But as consumers, I think, the most amazing thing is a lot of people are getting programmatic ads and they don't even realize it. And take your example of Hulu or of Spotify or Pandora or just going to a website. They're not realizing those ads are programmatic. Those ads are being shown to you for a particular reason, or probably a lot of reasons. And it's something funny that I always do when I meet with a new client. And this really drives home the fact that what we're talking about is happening in real time based on where you are and where you've been online and what things you've bought and searched for. What I always do with a new client, if they say they understand it, but they kind of don't, what I'll do is I will pull up a newspaper website or a TV website from another city that they're not in. So I'm in the East Coast. I'll pull up, a Los Angeles newspaper or Denver or somewhere else, and I will show them the ads on that website. And most of the time, I'm lucky that those ads are not ads for businesses where that newspaper or publisher is located. It's ads where I'm located. And I explain, I try to gauge their response when they see that. And then I explain why that is. And I explain that, hey, we're seeing an ad for TD Bank because I've just been to their website to pay an auto loan. Or I see an ad for a local lumber company trying to sell me a shed because I'm looking for a spring cleanup. I'm looking to put a new shed in my yard, let's say. And so I always drive it home because I explain, in the old days, if you went to a newspaper from another city, you would expect to see on their website local ads in that city.
Yeah.
And by doing that with the client, it really now drives home the fact that it doesn't matter what website you're on. It doesn't matter if you're on a site that's local or national or based internationally. I've pulled up sites from Moscow, and I've seen a local ad, and people say, "How is that?" And I say that really drives home what programmatic is all about. Is that it's targeting me for where I've been, what I've done online, not because I'm located where the publisher is located.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of those sites, they used to sell those ads, directly and such, but, at times they can't. So if they sell it directly, you might see an ad for, whatever business, that's in that particular location. But if they are not, and they're, plugged into the network, they're getting what the network is sending them, and they're getting a cut of the revenue, for that. But it allows, from a targeting standpoint, I say, it's really what everything's being tapped into. Google's had their AdSense program forever and such. Well, that used to be kind of the standard for website publishing and everything, but now there's a lot more that's available. So you're buying from an ad inventory. And that inventory is being made available on a global scale. So you can go to a Russian site and you can end up, seeing an ad, for the donut shop down the street, and you wonder how that happens. Well, it's because of where you are, not what the website itself is.
And
It's
I'll
just a
tell
matter
you,
of where they show it.
the other part of it is I say to clients when I'm explaining this to them that, think about it. ESPN certainly on their website could manage big national buys for millions of dollars, but they can't handle, there's no rep at ESPN.com that can handle every mom and pop business around the country who wants to show ads in their local area for $500 a month. So like you said, they open it up to a network, and then technology allows them to reach the right people. It allows advertisers to reach their target consumer and to do it in a way that it wins for everybody. It wins for the consumer. They see a local ad. It wins for the publisher. They can make the most for that ad unit. It really it's kind of amazing if you think about it.
It really is. So, you mentioned a little bit of the audience and stuff. So let's get into that for a second.
Yeah.
How are, with those ads, I mean, we know that the targeting capabilities are ridiculous now of what you can do. So, what have you seen and what kind of campaigns have you been putting together from a targeting perspective,
Yep.
of to be able to reach people? Because, we all get that, I mentioned something and now I'm suddenly getting an ad for this and this and that. Like I mentioned I needed shoes and Nike started showing up on my phone. And it happens all the time. Yeah, Big Brother's listening, whatever. But what have you seen, from a targeting perspective?
What the amazing thing is, I'll admit I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not I'm not an expert where I've been doing this from the inception, but what I find amazing is that even a few years ago, if we wanted to target somebody who had an interest in a particular product or brand, you might not be able to get that specific. You might have to choose this person is interested in mountain biking. Okay. Whereas now the ability to target, because of all the data that's being fed in from so many different data providers, you can target people that like a certain brand of mountain bike, or they like a certain value, a certain cost of mountain bike. Do they want the cheap one, the middle one, or the expensive one? Do they want one that's got this feature or that feature? I think what's amazing now is the ability to actually go in and not just target people who like to, eat out or like Italian food, but we can get much more specific now about, do they like it for takeout? Do they like it for delivery? Do they like high end, low end? Do they travel for that? The amount of specificity, is that right? Specificity. Yeah, is just really incredible now. But I think it also leads to another problem, which is we don't want to overthink it. We don't want to over scrutinize those targeting criteria. We do want to allow our platforms to figure out which one is better at generating clicks or conversions or whatever it might be. And so, I'll show some of my clients, and I have clients from home improvement to autism therapy. I have an electrician. I've got a roofer. I've got a whole variety of clients. They're all targeting something different. But I say to them, here's some of the targeting criteria we can use to reach the people that we think are best for your product or service. And then sometimes they actually want to take that list and they want to cross some out, and they want to, I say, let the system figure it out. All of these, our targets don't have to fit into every one of those criteria. They don't have to be every single thing on the list. They might be one or two or a few. So what I say is, let the technology try all that different targeting criteria. Yeah. Let's not over target where we need, left-handed plumbers that are 38 to 40 in Duluth. Let's allow the system to have some breathing room. And then if we have to, let's refine that targeting.
Yeah. Have you done anything, or much in the geofencing space? Because that's, of course, been big for a number of years now. And what the technology has advanced greatly, so we can target, you can target, individual buildings and stuff, or even sections within a building. If what you're, I can target the sporting goods section, in Walmart, and I could be Dick's Sporting Goods or something and say, hey, I want to get those people over here. So have you worked much with the geofencing space and such?
I have. And one of my best examples of that, which really drives home the ability to target, a lot of people use like the mall example. You can target certain parts of the mall or certain parking lot. The example that I use, because it's a real example, I had a client that was looking to recruit nurses. And certainly nurses, like a lot of professions, we can't find enough of them, right? Yeah. So I had a senior living facility up here in New England that was looking to recruit nurses. And what we did is we targeted the nursing schools, specifically the nursing building where the nurses in training take classes at a handful of local colleges and universities. Because let's target the school, but not everybody at that school is studying nursing or phlebotomy or whatever it might be. So we actually were able to zero in on the buildings in which those classes are offered at the schools. And we were able to see results on it. We were able to see that, people clicked through and engaged with the client about their part-time or full-time opportunities. So I like that as a great example of being able to hyper-target. Again, I caution my clients that we don't want to, as much as we can get that granular, we do want to recognize that, some buildings might be on a busy street and you're going to get drive-by traffic that isn't, I've got a casino right now and we're targeting other casinos. And one of them is right on a main drag. And the problem there is, I know from the numbers that we're seeing, it's not going to be a great target because we're getting all the drive-by traffic.
Yeah, I've done some campaigns along those, and I did one a while back for Mexican food for a location that was just starting up. They had brand awareness because they had other locations in the city, but nobody knew about that particular one, and so they wanted to get a lot of takeout orders and such. And so we targeted the nearby neighborhoods. What we did is we made sure to avoid the major thoroughfares, though. So you'd get some of the drive-through traffic within the neighborhood, but we would target, stay away from any of the major streets. And then it was funny because the location was in a shopping center with a major grocery store, but because they were one of the side businesses, they wouldn't often be noticed. So we targeted the grocery store too, so that when you were in, it's like, hey, we're right. And we literally put in the ads next to, it was a Publix. So we were like next to the Publix on, the street. And it made it, we ended up, crushing it because it's, you got all those people that suddenly had that awareness and everything because they were visiting the locations they knew of. It was a well-known brand, for like a local chain and such, but they didn't know that store was there. So it was great to take a store that was brand new and had just essentially joined the chain and get that initial brand awareness, and then they combined it, what we were doing with like a postcard mailing campaign that would hit the same exact area. And every time we had an offer of some sort, because the goal was to just get you in the store. It wasn't about that we're going to make a bunch of money off of this. We needed the awareness, so then you'd come back and we'd get they had a loyalty program, things like that, so they'd get them to sign up for that stuff. Yeah.
One of the things you talked about in another episode, one of the things you talked about, which I think is really important for everything with digital and advertising in general, but it's about the long-term value of a customer or client. Because, like you said, we want to sell them more Mexican food, but the reality is we want them to know that the restaurant is there, so that they'll buy this week, but also the value of them if they come in twice a month. What's that long-term value? And so, we don't want to forget that as much as digital can be a direct response medium, sometimes it's simply about letting people know where you are and that the value of that customer is going to come over the long haul. Other thing that you brought up that I think is great is, with geofencing, I always remind people there's two ways to do it. One is the look back, where a lot of suppliers of the service can look back 3 months, 6 months, usually up to a year. But another one that a lot more people are looking at is the real-time geofencing. My vendor calls it micro proximity. But the nice thing about that is, if you're a restaurant in a tourist area, you don't want to reach people a month after they've been to your location because they're gone. They might never come back.
Right.
The micro proximity allows you to target them while they're there. So you can target the hotels, other kinds of attractions and businesses, and only show them their ads while they are in the market, not after they leave. I did a campaign a couple years ago. We targeted the rest areas on the highway, and we only targeted the people heading into the state, not the ones leaving. Because if you're leaving, again, you've already had your vacation in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
We targeted people heading north, and if they stopped at the rest area, New Hampshire's got rest areas with liquor and food and everything like that. We knew you're heading into the state at least for a few days. So we would show them ads for some of the attractions further north, hoping that, that in fact they were coming here for a getaway.
Yeah, we actually did a campaign not that long ago that was for it was a tourist attraction, and I live near Nashville and such, so we were targeting Nashville, and I asked the question, it's like, what should we target and stuff, and it's like, okay, well, we want the tourists. This is a day, something that takes a couple of hours to do. It was like learning how to make chocolate. So okay, you learn how to make chocolate. Well, we need people, the event and stuff, signing up for the class for that was something that would take, I think it was $80 or $90 or something to do it for that couple of hours and everything. So it's like, okay, we're not targeting the locals. We don't want to do that. We need to target the tourists that are going to be here for a couple of days. And this is something they can add to their agenda. And it was downtown, so it was in walking distance. So it's like, okay, what's the natural target and stuff? It was real simple. Target the major hotels. That's all you got to do. Just some major hotels, because they're staying overnight, because they're in a hotel, and it's in walking distance. It's something that they can plan in, during their day and such, as they're visiting different, venues and what, and, seeing the tourist sites. So it's like, sometimes, don't overthink it, and we didn't have to target. It's like, don't target all the little motels. Don't target, like some of the other venues that they might visit and stuff, the tourist attractions and everything. Just target the hotels, because that's where everybody's going to be. And there's plenty of really big ones, and they have a lot of stories.
Very little waste. I mean, listen, very little waste. I mean, you're going to reach a few employees and maybe a couple people stopping by, but for the most part, everyone you're targeting, you're in a hotel for a reason. You're visiting the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, and so that's the idea. So let's like move into, because we have, it's been opened up to a broad range of advertisers and stuff. But if you're going to get into this venue, because we've got like streaming video, we've got streaming audio, you've got image ads, you can run HTML5, they've got things moving on them and stuff if they're designed right. What have you seen from a budget standpoint, though, to be able to get going in this, this realm? Because, you would think if you see a streaming video ad on a Hulu, that must have cost some money, So what have you seen, like what gets a small business, what kind of budget do they need to really kind of get into this realm?
I'll tell you, I've got clients all over the spectrum. I do have clients that are spending a few $100s a month on programmatic. And that may just mean that they're targeting the 1 or 2 towns where they're located. I have a landscaper, I have got an eye doctor, and we are literally targeting a few towns around their business. And we're able to do that effectively. People might say, well, that's not enough money to get frequency. But remember, unlike an ad in the newspaper or radio, when you're doing programmatic, you're targeting, by the nature of the solution, you're already targeting a subset of the population. So in the case of my eye doctor, we're already targeting people who we know wear contacts, wear glasses, they're in the market for ophthalmologic services. They're looking at laser surgery. We can make the whole list of what those people do. We know they've bought glasses in the past. So because we're targeting not everybody in our community, we're targeting people that own a cat or wear glasses or drive a pickup or whatever it might be. You don't need to spend a crazy amount of money to get started. Now, if you do want to spend a lot of money, that's fine. But what it may mean is you target a larger area, or you get beyond kind of the programmatic display and you look at, as you mentioned, some of the more sophisticated options like video. Obviously, video is going to cost more than display. Audio is another option with programmatic. You can certainly do that through iHeart. You can do it through, Spotify, Pandora. You can do it through TuneIn. There's a lot of ways to use programmatic. But I think the thing is, people see a video ad now and they think, well, I can't afford that because I can't afford TV. And they don't realize that if you're running, OTT, if you're running programmatic video, again, you're not buying an ad on the 6 o'clock local news. You're targeting specific people who, again, whatever that criteria is, kids, pets, what they drive, where they work. We targeted therapists when we were trying to hire autism therapists. We were actually able to target the homes. We uploaded a list of registered behavior therapists, we were actually able to target those people in their homes to invite them to apply with my client. We'll talk about super targeting the right people. It's not as expensive as you might think because we're not reaching everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Touch on a second, so when you're doing this reach and such, for people, frequency, how often do you see that you want to be, reaching a particular, showing an ad to a particular end viewer, for it? What have you seen as far as how often they should be seeing it?
It's a great question. And the name of my business is called Constant Frequency. And the reason that I named it that is about 20 years ago when I started it as just a side thing. I was a radio guy, and frequency is a big term in radio.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was doing a lot of email for people because 20 years ago, people were afraid of constant contact. It was confusing. It wasn't easy to add a graphic to an email. It was a far cry from where we are today with vendors like Constant Contact and MailChimp and others. And so I named my business Constant Frequency. And the frequency term, reach and frequency are the big things in radio, but also in marketing in general. And I think that we need to, people say, oh, the 3 is the magic number, right? 3. If someone hears a message 3 times, they respond. I don't know if that's necessarily true because it depends what the message is. If the message is to remind me that there's a Mexican restaurant in town, I don't know that 3 is the magic number. I may need to hear it once to know that they exist, like you said, the one that opened up in a new plaza, or I may need to hear it every couple weeks to remind me to go in. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at reach and frequency as metrics, but I think that a lot of it depends on the message. I mean, people certainly are naive if they think that you can tell people one time and they're going to respond. But if that message is something really incredible, the car dealership is doing a buy one, get one free this weekend. One time will be fine, But, I think that it depends what the message is. And a lot of clients, they want to advertise, but they don't know if they want immediate response or if they want long-term branding. And if you ask them, a lot of people will say, well, I want both. Well, I want Chinese and Mexican tonight, but I'm not going to eat both. I've got to settle on one, right? Yeah. And I think that when you look at, what's the purpose of advertising, I think that it's incumbent upon the people that are selling the solutions, you and me and everybody in the advertising world, to really have that conversation with the client and say, what is this? Is this a 4-week intro to introduce a new business to the market? Or is this like ongoing? I mean, car dealers advertise all the time because even though you're not in the market right now, they know that 8 or 10% of the population is, and they want to be there so that no matter who's in the market when, they're reaching the percentage of the population that's looking to buy a car. And I think that a lot of businesses should operate in the same mindset. I'm not going to be buying clothes every day, but when I am, who do I think of? And the same thing is true with food or entertainment. The summer's here. There's a lot of summer attractions. Summer attractions don't advertise in May and then wrap it up for the year. They keep advertising because they don't know when someone's taking their staycation or their vacation. So, as far as what's the magic number, I think it depends. I really do. And I don't think it's because I don't want to give an answer. I think it depends on what's the message. Yeah. Is the message we're going out of business, or is the message we're in business and we want you to think of us, once a month when you go out for Thai food?
Yeah. Yeah. You really, depending on what the goal of the campaign is, if you want that long-term branding and stuff, you're going to throw that message out there, again and again to some of the same people, not necessarily at a ridiculously high frequency. Maybe you see it once every other day or once a day. They'll often, you work with some of these companies, they'll tell you, well, they should be seeing it 6 or 7 times and stuff. And I'm like, no, you don't need to see it that many. And you need to cut down on how many times they see it so you can actually use your budget to reach more people. Yeah. So because otherwise you're spending the money on the same people over and over again. So you got to be wary of that. So if they tell you, hey, we're going to throw it in front of people 10 times a day. I always think of you ever watch like a Hulu or, any streaming service, and then
Yep.
you get the ad that shows up, you hit the ad
Again and
spot and
again.
then you see the same ad 5 times throughout. It's the only ad you see in the entire 30-minute, like TV
Yeah.
show or whatever you watch. I'm like, really? That's the only advertiser you had, for it? Yeah. And so you're not looking to do that. It's a waste of money. I needed it one time, throughout that entire show.
And something else, I think this ties back to what we said earlier about metrics and measuring success. Let's not try to measure the success of a branding campaign on clicks and conversions, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have clients that say, well, we advertised, we didn't get as many whatevers as we thought we were going to get. Well, the ad didn't have a call to action. The ad was a branding ad. The ad said,
Yeah.
we're here. It didn't say, come in this week. So I think we need to be careful that when we do allow clients to say, here's what I want to advertise, that we make sure that we measure the success of that accordingly. And if the approach really is long-term branding, I've got two electricians I work with. One of them, we run ads, but they're just to stay in front of people. There's no half price, services this week. It's just to let people know we're here. Call us. We can do little, big emergency additions,
Right.
whatever you need, because you're not offering a 2-for-1 this week.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to make sure you're not, you got to make sure you're focused on the right things and not hung up on the wrong things and stuff. Yeah. If you're running a branding campaign, and then you're like, well, we didn't, because I've seen that with clients a lot. They get hung up on how many clicks or impressions and stuff they get. And I tell them all the time, it's not just the number of impressions or clicks. It's also where you got them from, what's the quality and such. There's companies out there that you have to be wary of because they'll promise you, especially when it comes to impressions, hitting a certain number. And I tell, people that are thinking of going this route, I said, don't worry about that. Okay. Because a lot of the times that what they're doing, they're getting you garbage.
Yep.
It's showing on some kids app or something. And I'm like, that's not your target. We're going to eliminate that stuff. And if I get a lower count, but I get you higher quality, if I'm trying to get somebody to take an action and I'm getting more actions out of it, that's what you want. It's not an arbitrary number.
I had a client last year cancel on me because he felt that he had more clicks or a better campaign when he ran through a lower quality network. And I eventually sent him a screenshot of the type of website where his ad probably ran. And we've all seen those web pages where you go to download something and there's a download button, but then around it, there's a bunch of ads that also look like download buttons. And those are ads. And I explained to him, that's where your ad ran. It was deceptive to get people to click on it. And that's you're no further along than you were,
Yeah, we always scour the list for where the ads are showing on apps and stuff because we'll check the actual what is the app. If I see high impression counts coming from somewhere, I want to know where it is if I've never heard of it and stuff, so that I can see if we're getting trash. We worked with a couple of years ago a consultant, and they had used a previous company to run this advertising. And they had numbers through the roof. And when I dug into those numbers, they were trash. And I tried to, no matter what I did, the problem was they got so hung up on those numbers that, we didn't end up working together long term because I insisted, it's like, this is trash. They got these numbers because they essentially cheated. That's not what you want. But I'm not going to be able to achieve those numbers because I'm not willing to open it up like that. I'm trying to get you a result.
Well, and there's the ultimate question, right? What's the result? Is the result a lot of clicks that are worthless, or is it better quality? And I've always said that the one thing that digital allows us to do is look at quality over quantity. If you just want impressions, I can run really cheap in any city. All of us can run a campaign that's dirt cheap, tons of impressions. Against who? Like you said, kids or not just kids, but people that are not in the target for whatever your service is. And that's, if that's what you want, then all right. Now, maybe there's clients that want that. Maybe the McDonald's and the Coca-Colas, you know what, we just want tonnage. But most clients, they don't. And even those clients, they don't want that. But a lot of my clients, they'd rather have, it's just like pay-per-click. I'd rather have fewer clicks that are more likely to convert than have a ton of clicks that's garbage. I have a question for you. When you run a programmatic campaign, how many different ad sizes do you usually find? I think this is an important point. Different websites, different publishers have different availability. I'm at a point now where I'm running about 7 pieces of creative.
We run 5 to 7. Because there's a standard, ad size format and such. We've run more at times, but the boxes and stuff that are actually used, on these websites for the display sizes and stuff, they don't get much traction. And you can see that, when you get the report back and you're saying, okay, this ad, a 250 by 250 showed this many times, or 300, or some sort of skyscraper or something. You can really see which ones are. And so while you can do more, it's often a waste of time and such, because there's just not going to be enough traction on them. What you have to be careful really, based on the ad sizes, is just how especially when you got skyscrapers and stuff, or, long banner ads and whatnot, to make sure that the message still makes sense with that type of ad. Because, everything we design is like HTML5. So they're all moving, it's not just a standard image. You're going to see, different things, messaging come in, change because you're able to say more, but you've got to make sure that based on the ad size, can it be read? Does it make sense? Sometimes you do have to simplify it on smaller ads, so like the ones that are like 486 or whatever by, and then you have, mobile issues and stuff too. So you want to consider that.
I always tell people it's kind of like billboards, right? There's rules about how many words should be on a billboard because people are driving. And I believe a lot of those thoughts are applicable to mobile banners, because I have clients, take the 300 by 250 and put the same info in the 300 by 50. It's like, oh, no, you're 1/5 the size now. We're not going to fit it all in, and force the client to understand that these ads are going to work together. And the smaller ones might just be a few words. They're not going to have the whole sales pitch. I have a programmer I worked with for a long time who said, when you emphasize everything, you emphasize nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, certainly. All right. So we're about at the end. I want to wrap it up. What words of advice would you give to just any business owner thinking about this, to get into this realm? They want to use this form of advertising.
I would say try. There's nothing wrong with making a mistake or with experimentation. Try it out and ask for help. A lot of people do try to do things on their own. Sometimes they're afraid of going to an agency. They're afraid someone's going to charge them a lot of money. I think you and I both, we want to help people. We love this technology. We want to see people use it and succeed. If you need help, ask. There's agencies. There's a lot of people selling programmatic solutions these days. And as soon as you dive in and you start to explore it, you realize, oh, my God, I can target certain kinds of people that I couldn't do with direct mail, or I couldn't do in the coupon clipper or the, whatever. I'd say dig in and try. And once you're in it, then you can figure out, all right, do I add more communities? Do I add more services? Do I target more people? What do I want to do? But you'll start to get some information about, where your views and clicks, and hopefully if you're tracking, where those conversions are coming from. And it allows you to be smarter about it. I've had clients that have increased their geographies. I've had clients that have tightened them up, depending on what kinds of requests they're getting and how they're able to fulfill those requests. So I think you just got to jump in and try it. I mean, that's true with a lot of advertising. People do what they've always done because it's safe and comfortable. It might not be working, but that's the way that their parents did it or the former owner did it. And it's time to really say, all right, we need to explore what's out there, because your competitors are doing that. They're embracing some of this technology, some of this targeting. And anybody can do it now. You don't have to be the big car dealer or the big hospital. If you're in a community You can run programmatic ads if you're the donut shop, if you're the pizza parlor. Hey, listen, if you're the storage facility, why would you not want to target people living in the apartment buildings? That's a great geofenced opportunity, right? So I think it's just dig in and try. And once you get a taste of it, you figure out, do I want to invest more, less? What do I want to do? You can always revise and customize your campaign once it's running. But if you never start, you're stuck with the old ways.
Okay, Jordan, we're going to wrap it up now. How would, anybody that want to reach out to you, what do you got? How do we get a hold of you?
My website is constantfrequency.com, and email is simple. It's jordan@constantfrequency.com. And I like having these conversations. I like talking to people, and I feel like I'm still learning every day. If I thought that I knew it all, then that would be pretty embarrassing. I love talking to people. I love trying new things. I love working with new clients, new challenges. So I encourage anybody who's taking a listen and says, "Wow, this sounds interesting," give me a call or give you a call.
Yeah, that's the great thing about marketing. It's one of those things, especially digital, we're constantly learning. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. My name is Cash Miller. I'm your host. It's Marketing Masters, the Agency Power Show, and thank you for listening today.